I thank the honourable member for giving way and very much welcome my honourable neighbour to his first appearance at the dispatch box. But given what he has just said about his party believing this is not too high a price to pay, given these changes actually are not coming in and affecting these women until 2019, 2020, is he making a commitment today that were Labour to win the next election, that these changes would be reversed?
We are very clear that we cannot have constant changes in pensions legislation. One of the problems we face is precisely this, a constant chopping and changing of the timetable. So we will vote for our amendments tonight in the hope that the government's wisdom will accept our amendments, and then in that case we will all be very happy, or at least happy on this side of the House.
Grateful to the honourable member, and having been born in 1954, I need to declare an interest in this debate. The honourable member has come to the dispatch box and argued for the spending of an extra £10 billion. But he cannot just come here and argue for that without saying where the money is coming from. Is he going to put taxes up? Is he going to cut some other spending programme? Is he going to borrow more money? Can he please tell us?
To make the position clear to the honourable gentleman, we are proposing savings from 2016 of £20 billion. The government is proposing savings of £30 billion. These savings will come into effect from 2016. No sensible opposition, or indeed government, would set out a spending plan for the next Parliament 5 years before they would come into effect. If the honourable gentleman considers that to be a credible position, well, the difficulties the Liberal Democrats are having become a little easier to understand.
Isn't there something which goes beyond cheek, that Liberal Democrats should actually stand up and question what we might be saying to the electorate for the next Parliament, in the next Parliament, when their party signed an agreement a year ago, which they're happily voting with the government bill tonight?
My honourable friend again makes the telling point. We have a Liberal Democrat Party which signed, as far as I understand, a pledge on tuition fees, which immediately went into government and trashed. Yet they want the Labour Party to tell them 5 years down the line what the spending plans of a future Labour government would be. As my honourable friend says, it's pure cheek. Mr. Speaker, in the event that a modification in the timetable is necessary, and in answer to the questions about where do the savings come from, it may well be that the government would be better speeding up the timetable for 67 and 68 in terms of state pension age. That is something we would consider. That is a much more sensible option than this disproportionate, unfair and unjust hit on women aged 57 and 58, 500,000 of whom there are. I give way to my honourable friend.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. I think the point he's making is a point well made, because it seems to me that this position by the party opposite the government is actually based on a predication that women somehow work for pin money. There is no understanding that women take time out for childcare, that their pension pots are much smaller than those of men, and that these changes are going to create genuine hardship for the women who are impacted upon.
My honourable friend is right. She represents a constituency where many women will be affected by this, and particularly low-paid women. This has a socio-economic dimension, of course, and it's one that I'm sure the Minister is aware of. Mr. Speaker, our amendment would make a real difference to the lives of the women affected. Our amendment is designed to secure a limited reform targeted on a specific group whom the government is not treating fairly. Our amendment would give rise to costs representing just over 1%, 1/100th of the annual pensions budget. The Chancellor has previously said we are not going to balance the budget on the backs of the poorest and the most disadvantaged. But the costs of this Tory-led government's acceleration of the state pension age equalisation timetable is targeting a group which has limited resources. I hope it's better than the previous intervention.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way. He's making a passionate point. He talks about social justice and fairness. But could I then say to him that all of those that he's speaking up on behalf of will be asking the question today that if the Labour Party do ever get back into power, will these changes be enacted by them? And it's a fair question for everyone to ask, and it's fair that he gives us an answer today.
On his last intervention, the honourable gentleman didn't listen to the answer. In this intervention, he hasn't listened to the answer I gave to the honourable member for East Dunbartonshire. You just don't seem to get it. Happy to give way to the honourable lady who I know is an expert on these issues.
I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman for giving way and welcoming him to his post. And I declare an interest also, Mr Speaker, as a woman whose state pension age was increased to 66 under the previous government. I would just like to know from the honourable gentleman, with this £10 billion commitment that he is £11 billion commitment that he's making, in addition to the £12.5 billion commitment that his right honourable friend, the Shadow Chancellor, is making. At what point do these billions of pounds add up to real money in the minds of the Labour front bench?
The honourable lady talks about real money. The situation is clear. We are proposing £20 billion of savings starting in 2016. Your government is proposing £30 billion of savings. This is £1 billion a year over 10 years now. I understand the honourable lady has some actuarial experience. She must understand that no sensible opposition, or indeed government, would put down as a matter of law that they, 5 years down the line, are still committed to the same proposal. That's just common sense. Mr Speaker.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Would he agree with me that as we talk about billions on one side of the House or billions on another, there's a great irony in the fact that public borrowing is up based on the predictions of this government opposite? If we are to talk about billions being out of place in terms of budgets, perhaps that would be a good place to start.
The honourable friend makes a very good point. The government is very good at finding money when it wants to. Yet on issues that affect a significant number of women, 500,000 women, with the anxiety and financial cost involved, they just seem unmoved. And let's talk a little, Mr Speaker, about these women, what kind of women we're talking about. According to the House of Commons Library, the median total private pension of a 56-year-old woman is £9,100. That's not £9,100 a year. That's £9,100 in total. The same figure for a man is closer to £53,000. Mr Speaker, not only that, these women are more reliant on the state pension than men. State pension is often women's only source of pension income. 40% of these women have no private pension savings at all. No one's suggesting this is the government's fault, of course. And that's, I think, a pretty simplistic suggestion from a sedentary position from the honourable lady. But the fact is, 40% of these women who you, as a government, are going to make wait between a year and 18 months have no private pension. The state pension is all they have got.
Thank you for giving way. That particularly resonates with my constituents in Inverclyde. Over 1,000 women will be affected by this bill. And of those 1,000 women, they do not have a large pension to look forward to. These are the women who have taken time out to look after their children, who are now providing childcare for their sons and daughters, and are looking after perhaps elderly relations as well. These are women who can ill afford to lose out in their state pension and are needed the time to prepare as well.
Yep.
Honourable friend is spot on. Caring is a very important issue in this context. A third of the women we are speaking about are already retired in their late 1950s, and they're often caring for relatives. And of course, men care too. Men have caring responsibilities, but in significantly lower numbers than women. And these women also earn less on average than men. They have less chance to make up for any lost pension. The £7,800 which those 330,000 women waiting 18 months are estimated to lose, £7,800 in lost pension income. And if you add pension credit to that, some women are losing up to £11,000. And that's before we talk about the benefits that accrue at state pension age, such as winter fuel allowance, travel, etc. This is a serious financial loss to these women. Delighted to give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and he's already made the very point that I was going to make, that these women aren't just losing out on pension and potentially pension credit, but also those passported benefits which are so important for low-paid pensioners, like winter fuel allowance, like free bus travel, like free dental work, like free prescriptions. Those things are really important to this group of women, and they'll have to wait longer to receive them.
It's absolutely right. There is no doubt about this. This is a significant blow to these 500,000 women. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we have put down the amendments that we have. If our amendments pass this evening, the 330,000 women facing an 18-month hike in state pension age will have restored to them that average of £7,800. They will also, if they're on pension credit, have restored to them up to £11,000. And as my honourable friend just mentioned, all the other benefits too that accrue at state pension age will be restored to these women. I say again, this is a serious, significant issue for a large group of women. Mr. Speaker, I wish to turn finally to the chance which our amendment offers to the government. One last chance to show women that they get it. We're all aware of the government's growing problem with women voters. We hear the reports of the Prime Minister huddled in number 10, surrounded by advisers and pollsters explaining to him just how grim the news is for him and women voters' opinions. Support for women, support for this government from women is falling off a cliff. According to the reports from inside number 10, the pollsters are telling the Prime Minister that 25% more women than men believe that the economy is going in the wrong direction. 10% more women than men are saying cuts are falling unfairly on women, and no wonder given this bill amongst other things. Favourability towards the coalition among women is now 12 points lower, according to these leaks from inside number 10, than it was 18 months ago. Women are twice as likely to think that their children will have a worse life and less opportunity than their generation. Overall support from female voters has slipped significantly for both the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats, and we know the government is falling today further behind in the polls. Our amendment offers the government a chance to show it gets it, to show that it understands what matters to women is the impact of the government's policies